unlocking the power of farm management software. My name is Will Bruce.
And I'm Josh Collins. We're both from farming backgrounds, and between us and our teams here at AgriWeb that are right behind us, we take care of 3,500 customers across the world.
So as you can probably already tell, I'm not a local lad here in New South Wales. I'm about 10,000 miles away from home and grew up in part of a farming family for 6 generations in Kent in southeast England.
And I grew up on a cattle property down in northeast Victoria and still farm alongside my role here at AgriWeb. In fact, I'm heading back this afternoon to chip away at a few jobs over the weekend.
So as you can probably tell already, between us we have a huge passion alongside the team behind us here for ensuring that every single day livestock farmers now around the world are continuing to gain access to what we refer to as the digital future of agriculture.
And it's a great point, Will. It's something that we feel very strongly about as a company, that the livestock industry has been misunderstood and in some cases even neglected when it comes to using great on-farm technology.
So that's why opportunities like this on a Friday lunchtime at midday is a great chance to bring what we call the AgriWeb community together to help unlock and solve for each other's on-farm challenges and indeed opportunities.
So with that said, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Rachael Windrum, and she's in the webinar with us right now. We feel very, very privileged to have Rachael here with us and so many other farmers that are farming with AgriWeb around Australia here today. So welcome, Rachael. What's going on farm today?
Oh, thank you for having me and for inviting me along. We've got on farm today, it's pretty dry. So we've moved some cattle, we've checked some other groups, checked some fencing that we've had to redo, and everything's going pretty well this morning. So it's a good start to the day.
Awesome. And Rachael, we were just chatting beforehand, you headed out for a run this morning. It's good to get some exercise in the legs.
It is good, and it's also good for the headspace, isn't it? It clears your mind, makes you feel good, and just takes your mind off the everyday things. I think that's important for us all. So yes, it was enjoyable.
That's great, yeah.
One of those things in life you never regret. Thank you, Rachael, for the intro. Let's get into it.
So today we're focused on how to unlock the power of farm management software.
And in terms of structure, we're going to pull up a slide now of how we're going to go through that. So first of all, to kick things off, we're going to wind the clock back and go through with Rachael about life on farm before she made that move to technology.
Secondly, we're going to wind the clock forward to today and look at how Rachael's managing her operation and having unlocked the power of farm management software. What are the key differences now on her property?
And we'll then understand that transitional change, often a big word that we go through in life. You know, what and who was involved, how long did it take, and what does success look like on farm for Rachael in the years and indeed the generations to come? Critically, how is she going to achieve that success?
Then we're going to finally look at a wrap up and, of course, the AgriWeb community. What's it like to be involved in the AgriWeb community, and what are some of the key benefits of being a part of that community that so many people here on the call today are a part of?
Yeah, so talking of people on the call, Josh, what are we at? I'm just trying to look at a number on the screen.
So we're actually just ticked over the 350 mark that have joined in for the webinar, and there's quite a number that are also chiming in from Facebook Live as well. So it's a really exciting group to have with us here today.
Cool. So it's pretty packed shearing shed then.
It's a busy race that's leading in there for sure.
So it would be great for everyone to share, and you'll see down the bottom of your Zoom tab there in the message function of Zoom. You'll see that chat icon in the bottom right hand corner if you have any questions, but in the Q&A, please do everyone share where you're from and what you're running. We find it's always fascinating for everyone to see where in the country they're from, what they're looking like on farm, so we have a good idea of our representation across Australia.
So as Will mentioned, in that chat as well, David, Chloe and Lucy from our Farm Success team are joining us in the chat function. That's again in the bottom right. David, Lucy and Chloe are here to help you if you can't hear us, or if you have any questions about using Zoom as we go through the webinar today, feel free to use that chat function and they're here to help us as we go.
Cool. In terms of questions, sort of build on top of where you are and what you're up to, we'll be addressing those questions throughout the session today. So make sure you pop your questions into that Q&A section. I see there's one that's already popped up in there on the bottom of the screen. And you can also vote on other people's questions as we go. So hopefully that maps it all out. Rachael, let's kick things off. Would you mind just giving us a brief introduction to your farm? You know, where are you based and what are you running?
Sure. So we have 400 hectares here running a beef cattle enterprise in the Lower Hunter of New South Wales. So our country ranges from river flats, which are our improved country, through to gently undulating country and steeper hill country. So we breed and fatten our own stock, and then send them off to market. Basically, is generally what we do here. So my husband and I run the property as a team. We have no staff, and my husband has run the property for about 30 years now. So he has a wealth of experience in the area and for what we do. We were traditionally cattle stud breeders and have morphed into more of a commercial operation now. So it's exciting time for us.
Cool. Fantastic. And you're in a brilliant part of Australia as well, Rachel. And I think it's important to note that it is, quite sad to hear the news about the fires. And I know there's been some fires in your area, particularly over the last couple of days. And I think certainly as we go into this webinar, our thoughts are with both the teams of firefighters and the people and farmers that have been affected by the fires over the course of the last few weeks. So our thoughts are with those that are struggling.
Yeah, 100%. And just to mention that, what I mentioned about who's where in Australia, Emma Stratton from Central West, New South Wales, as a merino producer, says hello. Naomi from Central Victoria is running a mixed operation, cropping in there as well. And Michael Clark, Braidwood Southern Tablelands, a commercial Angus breeding operation. So
thanks for saying hi, guys.
Yeah, keep those intros coming. It's great to hear who's where and doing what.
Amazing. So we might move now to have a look at life before farm management software with Rachel.
Yeah. So Rachel, let's rewind the clock. I know we met in Singleton just over a year ago. Do you mind going back? Let's rewind 18 months or so and just walk us through life on farm before you made that move to farm management software and technology.
Sure. So my husband, Matt, did not only most of the work on the property, but also most of the record keeping. And he was one of the many farmers who does a lot of the record keeping using a notebook in the top pocket for all of the cattle work and treatments and things like that, movements. As well as that, he used a Word type document to record for each paddock what treatments we were doing, any sowing, any treatments that were applied, herbicides and fertilizers and that sort of thing. I started doing the record keeping towards the latter half of last year. And so I started doing the same thing, but I also added in an Excel spreadsheet because I wanted to be able to track everything in one area. And so I was very diligent with my record.
On unlocking the power of farm management software. My name is Will Bruce.
And I'm Josh Collins. We're both from farming backgrounds, and between us and our teams here at AgriRev that are right behind us, we take care of 3,500 customers across the world.
So as you can probably already tell, I'm not a local lad here in New South Wales. I'm about 10,000 miles away from home and grew up in part of a farming family for 6 generations in Kent in southeast England.
And I grew up on a cattle property down in northeast Victoria and still farm alongside my role here at AgriRev. In fact, I'm heading back this afternoon to chip away at a few jobs over the weekend.
So as you can probably tell already, between us we have a huge passion alongside the team behind us here for ensuring that every single day livestock farmers now around the world are continuing to gain access to what we refer to as the digital future of agriculture.
And it's a great point, Will. It's something that we feel very strongly about as a company, that the livestock industry has been misunderstood and in some cases even neglected when it comes to using great on-farm technology.
So that's why opportunities like this on a Friday lunchtime at midday is a great chance to bring what we call the AgriRev community together to help unlock and solve for each other's on-farm challenges and indeed opportunities.
So with that said, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Rachael Windrum, and she's in the webinar with us right now. We feel very, very privileged to have Rachael here with us and so many other farmers that are farming with AgriRev around Australia here today. So welcome, Rachael. What's going on farm today?
Oh, thank you for having me and for inviting me along. We've got on farm today, it's pretty dry. So we've moved some cattle, we've checked some other groups, checked some fencing that we've had to redo, and everything's going pretty well this morning. So it's a good start to the day.
Awesome. And Rachel, we were just chatting beforehand, you headed out for a run this morning. It's good to get some exercise in the legs.
It is good, and it's also good for the headspace, isn't it? It clears your mind, makes you feel good, and just takes your mind off the everyday things. I think that's important for us all. So yes, it was enjoyable.
That's great. Yeah,
one of those things in life you never regret. Thank you, Rachel, for the intro. Let's get into it.
So today we're focused on how to unlock the power of farm management software.
And in terms of structure, we're going to pull up a slide now of how we're going to go through that. So first of all, to kick things off, we're going to wind the clock back and go through with Rachel about life on farm before she made that move to technology.
Secondly, we're going to wind the clock forward to today and look at how Rachel's managing her operation and having unlocked the power of farm management software. What are the key differences now on her property?
And we'll then understand that transitional change, often a big word that we go through in life. You know, what and who was involved, how long did it take, and what does success look like on farm for Rachel in the years and indeed the generations to come? Critically, how is she going to achieve that success?
Then we're going to finally look at a wrap up and, of course, the AgriWeb community. What's it like to be involved in the AgriWeb community, and what are some of the key benefits of being a part of that community that so many people here on the call today are a part of?
Yeah, so talking of people on the call, Josh, what are we at? I'm just trying to look at a number on the screen.
So we're actually just ticked over the 350 mark that have joined in for the webinar, and there's quite a number that are also chiming in from Facebook Live as well. So it's a really exciting group to have with us here today.
Cool. So it's pretty packed shearing shed then.
It's a busy race that's leading in there for sure.
So it would be great for everyone to share, and you'll see down the bottom of your Zoom tab there in the message function of Zoom. You'll see that chat icon in the bottom right hand corner. If you have any questions, but in the Q&A, please do everyone share where you're from and what you're running. We find it's always fascinating for everyone to see where in the country they're from, what they're looking like on farm, so we have a good idea of our representation across Australia.
So as Will mentioned, in that chat as well, David, Chloe and Lucy from our Farm Success team are joining us in the chat function. That's again in the bottom right. David, Lucy and Chloe are here to help you if you can't hear us, or if you have any questions about using Zoom as we go through the webinar today, feel free to use that chat function and they're here to help us as we go.
Cool. In terms of questions, sort of build on top of where you are and what you're up to, we'll be addressing those questions throughout the session today. So make sure you pop your questions into that Q&A section. I see there's one that's already popped up in there on the bottom of the screen. And you can also vote on other people's questions as we go. So hopefully that maps it all out. Rachel, let's kick things off. Would you mind just giving us a brief introduction to your farm? You know, where are you based and what are you running?
Sure. So we have 400 hectares here running a beef cattle enterprise in the Lower Hunter of New South Wales. So our country ranges from river flats, which are our improved country, through to gently undulating country and steeper hill country. So we breed and fatten our own stock and then send them off to market, basically, is generally what we do here. So my husband and I run the property as a team. We have no staff, and my husband has run the property for about 30 years now. So he has a wealth of experience in the area and for what we do. We were traditionally cattle stud breeders and have morphed into more of a commercial operation now. So it's exciting time for us.
Cool. Fantastic. And you're in a brilliant part of Australia as well, Rachel. And I think it's important to note that it is, you know, quite sad to hear the news about the fires. And I know there's been some fires in your area, particularly over the last couple of days. And I think certainly as we go into this webinar, our thoughts are with both the teams of firefighters and the people and farmers that have been affected by the fires over the course of the last few weeks. So our thoughts are with those that are struggling.
Yeah, 100%. And just to mention that, what I mentioned about who's where in Australia, Emma Stratton from Central West, New South Wales, as a merino producer, says hello. Naomi from Central Victoria is running a mixed operation, cropping in there as well. and Michael Clark, Braidwood Southern Tablelands, a commercial Angus breeding operation. So
thanks for saying hi, guys.
Yeah, keep those intros coming. It's great to hear who's where and doing what.
Amazing. So we might move now to have a look at life before farm management software with Rachael.
Yeah. So Rachael, let's rewind the clock. I know we met in Singleton just over a year ago. Do you mind going back? Let's rewind 18 months or so and just walk us through life on farm before you made that move to farm management software and technology.
Sure. So my husband, Matt, did not only most of the work on the property, but also most of the record keeping. And he was one of the many farmers who does a lot of the record keeping using a notebook in the top pocket for all of the cattle work and treatments and things like that, movements. As well as that, he used a Word type document to record for each paddock what treatments we were doing, any sowing, any treatments that were applied, herbicides and fertilizers and that sort of thing. I started doing the record keeping towards the latter half of last year, and so I started doing the same thing, but I also added in an Excel spreadsheet because I wanted to be able to track everything in one area. And so I was very diligent with my record keeping, so I thought, until I realised that I just wasn't keeping up with it even on my Excel spreadsheet. So we had our records kept over a number of places, and yeah, looking now, it was pretty messy. But at the time, you think it's working and you think it's all free, but if it's not working properly, it's not worth anything.
And just to dive into that, Rachael, so take an example. How did you understand, what animals have been in which cattle have been in which paddock, for example, in the periods of time they've been there?
You grab the notebook and you flip back through the pages, looking for the dates or looking for that particular mob, and you just find it. Or you rely on your memory. Matt's got a better memory than I do, but yeah, it's not, that's what it was. Or it's just knowing when you look out that group's in that paddock, but you can't remember quite what date it was, so you're flipping back through the notebook. It's pretty simple.
So you'd be actually handwriting those notes into the notebook between yourself and Matt, Rach?
Yeah, so as I transitioned to be the record keeper, it was just me keeping the notebook. But that notebook also is the one that you've got up at the yards where you note which cattle are getting what treatment. So anyone who's worked in a set of yards knows that your hands usually get pretty filthy. And so over time, you're lucky if you can actually read your notebook later on, because it gets pretty dirty. So
talking of dirty notebooks, Rach, did you ever find, we often have chats with customers where that's ended up going through the washing machine?
Yeah, that happens.
No, thank goodness. Didn't happen to me. I don't know if it happened to my husband, but that would have been awful.
And Rach, as well, when you're thinking about the time that goes into writing down those records, the time that it takes to prepare those Excel spreadsheets, the time that it takes to share that information with Matt, what kind of time do you think you would have been spending per month or per week to actually have those records recorded?
Look, I actually, it's hard to quantify the time, I should say. It's always at the end of the day when you'd rather be having a cold drink and getting dinner organised than sitting there and making sure your records are right. So, yeah, look, it was time consuming, but it was more for me the fact that it wasn't working. I could see that it just wasn't good enough for what I wanted.
And to move that on then from a decision-making perspective, how did you and Matt make those decisions on future weeks and months and years to come for the operation?
Look, it was a lot of gut feel, and using his experience from his time here and what he does and what he's seen and what he sees working for other people. We could do that, but it's not. It's more of a subjective, I guess, decision, Will, and less objective based on data. and information. So yeah, it was something that you might be happy to do yourself, but you wouldn't want to have to justify that to the bank manager or to someone else. So yeah, a little haphazard.
And talking of those, other people, we often have a lot of conversations with customers who want to share that information, right? Sharing the information that they're collecting on farm.
We see quite regularly.
Was that spreadsheets, attached to emails? How did you go through that process with other people engaged in the?
No, one of our key support crew is our agronomist, and each time before he came out, it was a matter of grabbing the notes that you had, writing down another set of notes, so that when you're out looking at the paddocks with him and he says, when did this happen and what did you do and whatever else, you read through your notes and hope that you've written it all down and it all made sense. So that took time as well in preparation for the meeting with the agronomist, and the same thing would go for other farm consultants in other areas as well. And I've seen other people doing the same thing. They've got their scribble notes written down so that they can hopefully answer the questions that their consultant will ask, so that then decisions can be made. So yeah, that was, it's one of those things that a lot of people do. It's just that it can be so much better.
And did you find yourself with a layer of unknown when those recommendations came through from your agronomist without knowing, are my records correct, or are they somewhat near what I think they might be?
Not really. We were pretty comfortable with what we had, and the information that we kept, so it was easy to pass that on.
Rachel, it's funny. So we just had a message in from Bob Hathaway in South Australia. He was saying, I had a little red notebook with a lot of information in it, and it went through the washing machine. Good. So thank you, Bob, for sharing that story. It's not great to hear, but it does still happen.
And when we talk about things like batch numbers or treatments that are applied to your livestock, Rachel, how are you capturing those things on farm?
To sum it up, Matt said his record keeping wasn't really good enough. So yeah, it was a bit haphazard in terms of what he did note on his notebooks while he was doing the record keeping. And when I started to become more diligent on it, because I had more time, obviously. So yeah, it was just capturing it in the notebook again.
And what about when it came time to audit? And that might be the next question off the top of your tongue, Will. But what about when it came time for audit, and you're looking back through those batch numbers or treatment records and trying to understand if you're going to be compliant or not?
Well, we are part of the LPA Livestock Production Assurance Scheme, and we haven't actually been audited yet. So it was kind of a matter of hoping that we weren't going to get audited too soon, or that we would have enough time between getting notification of an audit and actually being audited to get our records in some sort of order. So I'm just grateful now that we are in a position where things are a lot more efficient and we do capture all that data.
Sure thing. It's Jack was chatting to someone a couple of weeks ago who'd had you talk about that notification period. It was only a couple of days before the auditor was coming on farm, so he was on the phone get things together and make the move. So we'll come on to that in a second. But just in summary, then to go through those, almost play that back to you, Rach. We'll bring up a slide now, and hopefully this relates to what you've just talked about, but it's that multiple paper notebooks. So it's yourself and Matt keeping records kind of independent of each other, and loose paperwork, and that can come from Word documents or printouts of Excel spreadsheets, and then the complicated spreadsheets themselves. And we were in fact talking yesterday about the formula error that you get in spreadsheets, and it's enough to
the error message in Excel. Yeah. So building on that, it's all these things combined, Rachel. This was what was driving your day-to-day record keeping. You were using all these things spread out across yourself, Matt, and any of the animals on farm that you're recording this information from. Is that a fair summary? Have we given it an overview of?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fair summary.
Okay, cool. So enough time in the past. It's always important to look back, see how far you've come. But let's move forward. Let's bring it to the present day. Let's talk about life on farm now. It's been probably just over a year, maybe 14 months or so since you made the move. Similar questions. What does it look like now on farm for you and Matt?
So much easier to do our record keeping. It's a lot of fun. When you find the right software, it's easy to use. Easy to use software is used a lot, and we use AgriWeb a lot. It's intuitive, and that's one of the reasons that I was drawn to it. So for us, I'm still the record keeper, so I still just put all the detail into the software that we do. However, Matt can access it to make his decisions or thoughts to run, bias together. So everything goes in there, all of our animal treatments, batch numbers, expiry dates. We've got the inventory there, so we know roughly what we've got on hand. We know, what expiry dates are on these things, paddock treatments. So, everything goes in there. I'm a firm believer that if you're not capturing the data, you can't manage the information, you can't manage the data. So by recording so much of that information, which is not only required for our accreditation schemes, but it's required to run a good business. So by doing that, we're much better positioned than what we were before. And one of the things that I just love about the software is that it's in my pocket, on my phone, all the time. And so you can be out in the paddock and thinking, how many cows am I supposed to have in here? There I go. Yeah, that's right. It's there. You can be out in the paddock looking at a crop and think, when did we last get our rainfall? How much rain have we had on it since the cattle came out? When did the cattle come out? Right, we can put cattle back in. So things like that, it's become a more efficient way to farm. It's become more manageable, and we can make our decisions a lot faster instead of having to come back home, find the record, find a time to catch up with each other. It's just so much easier.
Great stuff. And just Rachel, to give you a breather, then a couple of questions and comments. So Edward Martin, going back to that LPA audit you mentioned, the auditor was very impressed that we'd made the move to farm management software and AgriWeb. And Holly Larson has a question for you, Rachel. Are you putting those records in directly, or are you transferring them from notes? How does that work for you and Matt on farm?
Great question, Holly.
I tend to put them in directly. So, I use a horse for a lot of my work, my cattle work, my movements. And so half the time when I've moved a mob of cattle to a new paddock and I'm heading back to either another paddock or to put the horse away or whatever, I just get the phone out, do my movements, job's done. So, that is so easy. Some other records though, Holly, I do tend to do when I am back home. It might be something that's just takes a few more steps, and I just want to have a little bit more time to make sure I get it right, so it's all flows smoothly and works well.
And just whilst we're there, Rachel, another question from Miriam Stambra. Do you have at least 3G connectivity across your whole property, or do you work in the offline mode, in the cached mode?
No, we've got pretty crappy reception around here generally. It's on and off. You think this morning actually I got a chat message through on my phone. I went to open it up, but I couldn't because there wasn't enough reception, let alone reply. No, look, it's pretty bad. And so therefore it's really important for us to have the right software that you can use. Absolutely looks all normal, but it'll just update it when you've got a better internet connection. So yeah, that's important, but that's what you guys offer. So it's great.
So now that you're keeping those records digitally, Rachel, what would that mean for an audit on farm? What would that now change for you?
It would be far less stressful. It would take far less time. And you know what? I'd probably enjoy the process, knowing that everything was already there. You know, it's just, I mean, obviously I haven't had an audit, so maybe it's not so enjoyable, but no, look, I do believe that it's going to be a lot easier. All the records are there. They're easy to access. You know, you get the reports straight on the desktop. It's just simple. So yeah, no problem.
You're sharing that with, say, an auditor, Rachel. What's the sharing of information now like between yourself and Matt, where you mentioned previously there was kind of back and forth, you'd have to come back to the house and update each other on what you've done. What is that like now with your record keeping?
Yeah, it's live. It's live. So, you know, just something like we sent a load of cattle away last week. You know, you make sure beforehand, before you book them in, that they're out of their withholding period and export slaughter intervals. The morning of, both of us had used our program, just double checking that everything was out of export slaughter interval, that we had no problems. We're doing that separately, but the records are there, so they're accessible by both of us. So it means that Matt can be absolutely comfortable when he takes them in, you know, that they're all right to go. It does mean a lot. And it also means that he's seeing things in live time. As soon as it's updated on the phone, even if that is in the paddock or when I get back home, he's seeing records that are up to date, live. The numbers are correct as at that time, you know, work we did in the morning. So he can see all that information. It's just simple for him.
Got it. And another question from Miriam about those records. So she was wondering, can you look back, you know, for calf's vaccination date, for example, can you look back a year and see all that information without being connected to the internet? Is that something that's available?
Absolutely. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And the other thing that that I do with our treatment records like that, like a vaccination, sometimes I might put notes against that treatment, which just may say something else we did at the time of that treatment through the yards, or a particular animal that might have, I don't know, had a sore leg or something at the time, just so that there's a note that at that time these things happen. And then that's pretty cool too. You know, it gives you more power when you see the same animal a few days later. You can make a decision on what you need to do if that's the case. So yeah, look, the records stay there right the way through that animal lifetime.
Got it. And just whilst we're on there, you know, Rachel, you mentioned the role of the agronomist on farm. What's that relationship like now? Has that changed at all?
I think he likes it a lot more, because while we're in the paddock, he's asking what we've done up to that point. He can make recommendations in the paddock and really doesn't have to get back to us so quickly with any sort of notes in writing as to what to do and recommendations for future. So that relationship is made more efficient as well because of the software.
And Rachel, we notice you're sitting in your home office right now, and you're obviously looking at your computer. What's changed in your home office? And I'm kind of imagining that, you know, you've got this beautiful, clean, pristine desk space with no paper. But could you talk us through, you know, what does your working environment look like inside your home office there now?
Yeah, the records that you can see behind me are more accounting type records, still, you know, a bit old school. But look, I guess the desk isn't void of work. There is always work, and when I say work, sometimes that's just information about other things. So learning material about, you know, new things that are coming out, about forages and pastures and animal nutrition and all those sorts of things that you still need to get on top of. There's a bit more time to look at that now, so some of that information is now taking more room in the office than just record keeping materials.
Okay, great question. So what we'll do is just similar to the look back. We're just going to pull up a quick slide on, I guess, going back to, we refer to normally three different words, which is efficient, informed, and compliant. And I hope that resonates with you, Rachel. We'll start off with the efficiency. Can you walk through that?
Yeah, good point. I think we've heard some really key points there around the efficiency of making decisions around your withholding periods before you sell cattle or load them onto a truck. Some of the efficiency changes between the relationship with your agronomist and making those real-time decisions in the paddock and getting that real-time feedback is creating a lot more efficiency between the communication flow on farm. And I think there's another element in there, Will, around maybe the relationship with yourself and Matt, and rather than having to call one another or have a debrief at the end of the day around what's happened on farm, that information is there in front of you in a real-time setting.
Yeah, 100%.
Is that fair to say, Rach, before we talk about the next two?
Yeah, it is. And similarly, where you've got informed there, it's something like when I check a group of cattle and I make a note that one of the cows looks a bit lame. She doesn't need anything right now, but I'll make a note of that today. If Matt's in the paddock in a day or two or three and he thinks the same thing, he can see the note that I've got there and think, well, look, she looks a bit worse today, let's bring her in for a treatment. So it's informed decisions based on a bit of history as well, not just a gut instinct, oh, should we or shouldn't we? So yeah, really important tool for that.
It's a good, for an informed perspective. I was chatting to a customer a couple of months back now who was convinced that pre the move, that the paddock closest to his property was the best performing bit of pasture that he had. And interestingly, after kind of 12, 18 months of keeping those records, it was the one about 20 Ks down the road. So it's the reality of making those better decisions based on data, those better data-informed decisions.
I think finally, we've kind of also touched on audits and what does that mean for compliance. But Rachel, now that you are in a position where your records are in order, you kind of almost look forward to your next audit. Is that a fair summary of where, I guess, the status of your compliance on farm would be? Yeah,
it is. I'm comfortable, I'm confident, and yeah, no problems. Yeah. And it's only because I've gone through the process here and been able to capture all of the information in one place that makes me feel confident. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great stuff.
Fantastic.
What we're going to do is just briefly talk then. We've gone backwards and now we're at the present day. And there are a couple of questions that have come in around training and individual tracking. If you don't mind, Jordan and Alea will cover those off towards the end of the session. And what would be good now, Rachel, is to talk us through that transition. So from paper records and spreadsheets to farm management software. What I mentioned change up front. What did it feel like? Change is often something that we're afraid of, and let's start at the beginning. Like, how was that process? What did you go through?
Yeah, look, it was an easy process. It really was a simple and easy process. I took my time to understand what I wanted in software and to understand what was being offered before I made the move. So once I decided what I wanted and I wanted AgriWeb, it was an easy thing to do. It was just a matter of deciding when to start. And the best time, I think, to start changing your record keeping and moving on to software is when you've got time. Just make the time and do it. Doesn't matter what day. And the transition was easy. The support staff are excellent. And one of the things that I like about your team is that you get it. That you know what farming's like. You know what we're up against, and you appreciate that. And it's just about making it easy to use the software. So the transition was simple for me. Absolutely.
And Rachel, when you were going through making those decisions to go through into the transition, What were the key things that were going through your mind that kind of initiated the thinking for a transition?
In terms of actually wanting software?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
I guess, I mean, you're on a day-to-day basis, you're keeping records paper-based, you're dealing with Excel challenges, you're out in the paddock with the agronomist, and you're not having the information you need in real time. And I guess it kind of builds up to a point by where there's kind of this key moment, there's a key decision that happens to make that transition. And I guess the question is, what was that key moment for you that you made that decision to transition into a world of farm management software?
Yeah, it happened twice for me where I thought I was being a really good record keeper, and I noticed that my spreadsheet just wasn't capturing information. So I might have captured that I'd moved cattle out of one paddock, but hadn't actually captured that I moved them into another paddock. So even though I thought I was doing fine with that, I realized that it wasn't good enough for me. And that's when I thought I need something better. I need a system that's going to be able to capture it all a lot easier for me and make my life simpler. So really that was it. And I guess the key driver is not only the record keeping for the business decisions, but it was also the record keeping for our LPA requirements. So essentially that's where I've used most of the system over the last, a few months, and I'll be taking that forward. But yes, essentially it was just knowing that, I think I'm doing really well and it's not good enough. So that was it.
Got to start somewhere, Rachel. And perfect timing. So keep those questions coming, guys. From Tiffany Golding, question for Rachel. When setting up initially, where did you draw the line for starting? Were past treatments, stock/paddock entered? Was there a bulk entry to add the livestock already on farm? Was there a stock take for initial inventory entry?
Great questions, really good questions. So yes, essentially I decided to start on a day. That day was simply the day I was going to start. Subscribed one day, started the next. It wasn't the first of the month. It wasn't the first of the financial year. It would have been nice, but it wasn't. I just had to start. So yeah, I did a run around and do a stock take of our cattle in the paddocks. And so that was part of the point. And then the program will work you through how to set up your paddocks, which is simple as anything, and using a mapping facility that is recognisable. So it's easy to set up your paddocks. In saying that, we have a paddock called Silo. It's a big paddock, and it's an improved paddock that we've got lucerne in. So sometimes we divide that into two. It actually turns out we've got it divided into two with a hot wire most of the year. So in AgriWeb, I've set that up as two paddocks with a gate. So I can either run it as a whole or I can run it as two. And it's just understanding little things like that, which the team will help with in understanding what's going to work for you. But yeah, look, it was really simple. I wondered about starting my records backdated, but I just decided to start, and I'm glad I did, because there's always other things that come up in our lives and keep us busy. So no, that's all. It was pretty easy.
That was a great question from Tiffany.
We had thank you, Tiffany. Yeah. Keep those questions coming. There's Miriam, there's got something on there on, are you going to show us the platform? Unfortunately, in this session, we just won't have the time to do that, but at the end, we'll outline what that looks like and how we can get you set up with one of the team to walk you through the platform itself. Just to go back, Rachel, to that, we talked a lot about internally putting the gate functionality between paddocks. There was an open gate team that cost us decent chunk of development time to put in place. Yeah. But that was something that's really important. And Rachel, what you've mentioned there around running two paddocks and keeping the gate open, there's a fair amount of maths in the background to calculate food on offer and grazing plans that go with that. So those little things. Without customers, without customers like Rachael, we would never get that insight into what we should be building next.
That's a great point. Well, so many of the things that we do, which we'll actually touch on in a moment, are driven by our customers. And we have a very democratic approach to the way that we think about new features, where customers can vote on the ones they want to see built next. And so that's just a great example of one that was voted to be top of the list.
Yeah, so we're just going to pop over. It's a quick slide here, Rachael. I guess the first question is, has it been a gradual transition? You mentioned it was overnight, adding in those records, but in terms of your training, your development, Matt's involvement in AgriWebb or the product itself, how has that been, and what does the future look like? Where are you going to head next?
I would say the development's ongoing. I am always seeing something else in the program that I'd like to look at and use more. So I just wanted to start initially on using a small chunk of what the program offers to get us through audit and basic record keeping. And Matt started to be able to see the benefits of it more and more over the last period of time. So what I want to do is to start utilising the program more, I guess, reporting wise, to understand more of our costs relating to certain things. Just Will, like you said, the fellow that thought the closest paddock to his house was the best performing, and actually, it might not have been. And things like that we'll start to investigate more and make business decisions based on those things more.
Something it'd be good to touch on, and bringing back to that question from Elia, how do you do individual tracking, or do you just do mob tracking? I guess it's a good chance to spend a few minutes now talking about the future. Rachael, do you want to kick things off? Where are you at from a transition to the individual world?
Yeah, so at the moment, all of our software is essentially, it's mob based. So I've got a group of cattle, and all their treatments, all their movements, whatever else is all done together. So they move around the farm. As you know, sometimes you've got an animal that'll need a separate treatment. There are some records that we want to keep separate for that animal of certain treatments. So I'll pull an animal out of a mob, and it'll get its own little mob in the program. So essentially, instead of having one mob in a paddock, if you bring it up, there'll be one and one beast, so that for the rest of its life, we can easily see which one had that particular treatment, which makes a difference to us at the end of life. So we can do that. You can also do individual treatments just by pulling it out of the mob and putting it back in the mob, merging it back in. So that's all okay. And we know that at some stage in the future there will be an ability to be able to work on managing that information a little easier as well. So yeah, look, that's pretty much it. Look, to be honest, I still keep my notebook. It's my trusty soul with my ear tag numbers on it when I go to the yards, but it's not the go-to for all the information that you want to make decisions on every day. It's just there as a support, I guess, in the background, a bit like a crutch for an old man or something. Yeah.
Well, Rachael, it's great news. The guys have been working on for now the last 3 to 6 months our individual element of AgriWebb that's being released in the UK and is coming online early next year to Australia. The guys were actually
out in Armadale.
Yeah, Armadale 2 days ago with one of our customers up there, just trialing and testing some of the ear tag scanners and how that integrates into the app and how that pops up. So you can have hopefully some assuredness from us that paper notebook, that crutch, you can still have it in your pocket, but there might not be anything in it.
Side of it will be very.
We're going slightly mad.
I can't wait. That's just so exciting.
Yeah. And while we've got hundreds of customers that are dialing in here as well today, Rachael, for those that are looking to maybe use more of AgriWebb or looking to you as a leader in the AgriWebb community, as someone that's using the best possible elements of AgriWeb for your farms, what advice would you give to somebody like that that's looking to gain more from AgriWeb? Where should they start, and what would you recommend that they do?
Just start. It's just so easy. Use it as much as you can and make it your one-stop shop for all your record keeping. Keep it all together. It can do that. So that I think there's no need to have, multiple programs or multiple record keeping areas. Just stick it all in the one spot. It works whether you're a one-man band, a two-person operation like us, or whether you've got staff working for you, whether you've got one farm or multiple farms. It's just a matter of really just doing it. One of the things that we tossed about a lot was, do we really have to pay the money to subscribe to software? We've not done it before. Do we really need to? Well, depends on how well you want to do what you do, I guess. That I always say that if you spend money on something and it works or it lasts, you forget how much you've spent. If you buy something and it falls apart, you will never forget how much you spent. And so the money is more an investment. It's an investment in your time. It's an investment in your sanity. And it's just makes life easy. Sorry, I sound like an ad, but I don't have a problem with it at all.
Rachel, that's really kind. And just to go back to the individual element, we've shared in the chat functionality here a link so you can register for more information on that IAM, Individual Animal Management release that we're doing. That'll come online next year in full here in Australia. But as Rachel's mentioned, it's often good to just take it on a gradual basis, make that move, and then before you get too far.
There's never a bad time, right? As Rachel says, it takes roughly 30 days to create a habit, and if that starts once a day, pulling it out of your back pocket, adding in your treatments, or while you're out with your agronomist, or even just moving mobs, it's really one of those things you start, and exactly as Rachel said, there's never a bad time. So yeah, great response.
So guys, we're just going to come on to a couple more slides to share, and hopefully Jordan, that'll answer your questions as we come up. If there are any more questions, please keep them coming, either for Rachel or for Josh and I and the team.
So as we bring that next slide up, really there's hundreds and hundreds of customers around Australia, not only that are joining us here in this webinar, but we love to be able to share some of the key benefits of the AgriWeb community. And over 3,000 customers use AgriWeb to make better decisions on farm every day. And we make that as simple as possible by providing not only a local ag-based support team like David and Chloe that many of you, and Lucy, that you're chatting with now in the chat function. We really try our very, very best to make ourselves as available as possible to help our customers achieve success. And that's something that we, every minute of every day, we're focused on ensuring that those customers find success.
Yeah, and we also host these live webinars, just like this one, now on a monthly basis to help fast track your knowledge and how to best use AgriWeb. We have a dedicated help center, which is just effectively like a manual for your AgriWeb account. And if you didn't already know, you can also influence what our development team build next by suggesting new features or voting on ideas others have already created. And that's that link on the top right-hand corner, ideas.agriweb.com.
Finally, if you haven't already joined the AgriWeb community page, there's customers from right across Australia that are every day sharing ideas, meeting others from the community, and keeping up to date with special events that we host for our customers. And as we look through all of those 4 items that you see on the slide there, we'll be sharing those via email to you over the course of the next 24 hours.
Okay, and if you'd like to book a one-to-one session of a period of time with our Farm Success team as a customer, you can book in your personal session from the Schedule a Callback button in the mobile app and web app. And you'll see that on the right-hand side with the screen there. There's a link to the help center and to schedule those calls, or even just chat live to the guys in the office here.
So for Jordan, if that helps to answer your question as well, just around training and what does that look like, where can you book in that one-on-one? That slide is really, really a simple, straightforward access directly to our calendars. You can book in any time, and that's for all customers right across Australia.
Tiffany just had a quick question before we move on to the final slide is, if you had staff, would you get them to enter directly into the app or hand in their notebook so there is only one person entering the data?
That's a great question for Rach.
I guess
I'll leave that one to you.
Leave that to you, yeah.
I'd get them to do it. Bugger doing it myself. No, look, I think the staff can toe the line. You can see who's put things in, and yeah, look, no, just get them to do it. Again, it's just about having the connectivity when they get it. So whether it's in the paddock, they're going to have it. No, don't do it yourself. Get them to do it.
It's a great question, Tiffany. When I was in WA this time last year, we had a customer over there who every year gets a German working holiday maker to come on farm and help out. And they reserve a user license on AgriWeb for them. And in the 11 months leading up to them coming on farm, they drop a task on the GPS
pin. The task pin right across the top of the rock.
Every time they see a stone across the property, the German working holiday comes on farm, and no jokes, you almost can't see the map or the terrain. There are so many stones, and they just pick up stones for the 2 months. Apparently, they're always pretty hardworking. The Germans are that. Yeah, the guys and girls who come up from Germany. So absolutely, definitely great question.
It's just one use case. There's many other use cases for tasks, not just picking up rocks. But great point, Tiffany.
So Jordan, hopefully that answers your question, and we're going to finish up. So for those that haven't joined AgriWeb, we feel hugely privileged that farmers like Rachael get in touch with the team every day to understand how they can make better informed decisions on farm and put an end to some of those paper and Excel-based challenges we mentioned before.
So we also know that AgriWeb isn't the right fit for every farm, but we feel that after today's session, if you'd like to follow up with Rachael or learn a little bit more, please head over to info.agriweb.com/consult, which you can see up on the screen there. And you can book in a session with one of our team members here on the Farm Success team to maybe learn a little bit more about if AgriWeb could be the right fit for your farm.
Yeah, cool. So Jordan, great place to head to kick things off. And we're just, as a final point, we're entering a really, really busy month as farmers across Australia kind of wipe the slate clean, as Rachael mentioned earlier, on their records and make the move ahead of the new year. We're going to do all we can night and day to make sure we get the time to better understand your operation and hopefully how we can set you guys up for success in the future.
So that brings us to the end of today's session. And firstly, a big thank you to Rachael for taking the time out of your day, which is a very busy time of year. And we know that your fire's going on around your property. There's a lot happening on the farm. And we just wanted to say an enormous thank you for taking the time out to talk with many of those customers and individuals that are on farms here today, trying to learn a little bit more about unlocking the power of farm management software.
Before we say thank you to everyone that's joined us, it'd be rude not to include one final question from Sam for Rachael. When does Rachael enter data such as vaccines and other costs, the finances of those, as I struggle with that? That's from Sam, Rachael.
Oh, Sam, when we get them, essentially, as soon as they get back home and get in the fridge or whatever, if it's a vaccine, I'll just pull them out and do it then. It's actually interesting. I've become a bit of a thorn maybe out there. By doing that, we've discovered that we bought something with something that had expired, a feed supplement. It was not an issue, but we were able to pick that up, that it had expired. So we took it back and they were quite surprised. So yeah, look, I just do it as we get it. The invoices are usually emailed to us as well. So I can put the price in, I can put the batch number in, the expiry date, the size, everything. It just goes in when we get it. And that's super easy. Then it's there and it's ready to use when we actually physically need to do it. So yeah, simple.
Great. Well, Rachael, as Josh just mentioned, a big thank you from us both and all the team here. It's been really great having you on.
It's a pleasure, and it's exciting to have so many people join us, and it's a great community to be a part of. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachael. I wish you all the best for the end of 2019 and wishing you every success in the year ahead as you kick off your 2020.
Yeah, to finish up, a big thank you to everyone that's joined us live and for everyone else that will probably watch after this on catch up. And we'll be setting these recordings, satisfaction surveys and the links mentioned in the previous slides If you have any further questions, please do get in touch with us by email, phone or in-app chat.